Let me raise some of the big questions, though, tonight. Are we seeing Trump's pressure tactics with tariffs ahead of the Modi meet? Can India and US strike a tariff deal? Could we lower tariffs with the principle of reciprocity? And does India have a plan B if Trump pushes us too hard? How does one tackle someone who seems to be a complete disruptor of politics and economics like Donald Trump? These are some of the questions I want to raise. Arun Sharma is advisor to the World Bank president. He's based in Washington, D.C. Dan Morrison is journalist and author based in New York and someone who's written extensively on Donald Trump. Meera Shankar is former Indian ambassador to the United States. And Gil Bardonalal is senior research fellow, Center for the Study of Statesmanship in Washington. I appreciate each of you joining us. I want to come to each of you one by one. Arun Sharma, to you first. Let's talk about this T word. Tariffs is the word, the buzzword at the moment. The US president suggesting he's going to go in for reciprocal tariffs with several countries. A list of that might come later tonight. Is that something India should be concerned about?
Well, India has to be concerned about them because there is a reason why every country imposes tariffs and seeks to protect its industries. The United States is doing it now. India has been also doing it to protect its critical industries that need protection from competition that is currently unfair because of the state or development of certain industries. But what is interesting to note is that it's not a very uniform impact on all sectors and all industries. And there are certain tariffs that have been imposed across the globe on steel and aluminum, so that impacts all countries, and India is going to get painted with that same brush, has already been painted. The issue is really for Prime Minister and the whole country really to be concerned about is which are the industries where it's going to be politically difficult to open the market in a way that is difficult for us. I'll give you an example: medical devices or agricultural commodities. Those are pharmaceuticals. Those are things that are critical to public good in a country like India, where the purchasing power is limited and the social protections are limited. And these are fundamental to the well-being of the population. So managing those issues is very, very important. But if reciprocal tariffs come, I would say that that's a window of opportunity for India to actually press for reduction of tariffs from all types and then adjust our domestic policies to make sure that our industries can compete and then find ways to essentially supplement and ease the pain that an easing of tariff might cause to certain domestic industries, for example, that could be impacted by them.
You know, but you make an important point, which I want to take to Meera Shankar. What if President Trump tomorrow says, I want across-the-board tariffs, or I want tariffs on agricultural commodities, medical equipment, pharmaceuticals? Can India resist that kind of pressure at the moment? Do you believe it's possible for India to resist the pressure? There were signs even in the budget that India was willing in some way to almost adjust to some of the demands that the Americans were making.
Well, first of all, let's look at the two-way trade between India and the US. In goods and services, it's around little less than $200 billion. And the trade surplus that India has enjoyed with the US has been modest. It's been broadly balanced. It's been the surplus.
The US believes with you, man. US believes that the trade surplus that India has with them works against American interests. What if Donald Trump raises that tomorrow and says across the board, I want tariff cuts?
Well, I don't think it will proceed like that, but certainly he would want India to buy more. And he also mentioned specifically in his call with Prime Minister Modi that he would like India to buy more defense equipment. So that is certainly an area where India would be more than happy to pick up things which it needs. Similarly, in the field of energy, there are opportunities. New opportunities, because Trump has gone back on the renewables policy, but he's stepping up fossil fuel production. So that might be something which India could take more of from the US. And also, I think India is keen to cooperate in development of small modular nuclear reactors. So and then in the whole field of critical and emerging technologies as well,
right,
where we like the US to ease its regulatory framework, because on the one hand, they want us to buy more. On the other hand, they put restrictions on the items that we would like to buy. So I think there's going to be give and take.
You're saying, ma'am, I'm just going to stop you. You're saying there's going to be give and take, but I just want to stop you because I want to understand the other perspective. Gil Barndollar joins us, senior research fellow at the Center for Study of Statesmanship in Washington. Is there an asymmetry in the relationship? America under Trump 2.0, particularly in his first 100 days, wants to call the shots. Can India resist it?
Yeah, I think there's an asymmetry, but I think, as you said in your previous segment, watching Trump as a full-time deal and the unpredictability is tough for world leaders to deal with. But I think in a lot of ways, Trump is often easily mollified. I mean, we saw with the Mexico and Canada tariffs some largely symbolic announcements. In fact, in some cases, just restating things that were already going were enough to kind of keep the wolf at bay, essentially, for at least for a couple of months while they figure out what's going on.
So are you saying that even if he puts a high tariff, if the demands he makes are only an initial negotiating tactic?
Oh yeah, I think that's been clear over and over again. I think whether India does something very kind of small bore and symbolic, there's talk in the U.S. press about kind of favorite industries in Republican states, pecans and bourbon and things like that, or Harley Davidson is kind of a flashpoint, even though the actual volume of trade with India and in motorcycles is minimal. Little things like that can at least buy India time to negotiate and think about big picture issues like weapon sales or liquefied natural gas.
Dan Morrison, as a journalist and author there, give us decode Trump for us. Is Trump 2.0 very different from Trump in his first term? We seem to find him to be a man in a hurry. Over the last few days, he seems to be all over the place, throwing up one executive order after the other. Should that make us in India a little wary this time?
They are moving with speed and purpose on every front. And that you can see that here on the domestic front, where they're seeking to eviscerate and reduce and demolish entire government departments in the name of cutting the budget, and plenty of other actions, both symbolic on the culture war front and very real when it comes to the workings of the U.S. government. And you see that as well in their moves in Gaza and on Ukraine. At the same time, as has been mentioned, this is also a president who enjoys some pomp, and he enjoys symbolic victories. And so that's the needle that will be threaded today. What is the prime minister bringing to Trump that might slow down our own retaliatory tariff train?
So you're saying you've got to offer Trump a sweetener, is it? You're saying India will have to offer Trump some kind of a sweetener, mollify him and buy time and then see how the relationship goes. Is that the way you see dealing with Trump is about give and take constantly?
Bring some cookies, yes, definitely.
Arun Sharma, as you said, the concerns in India are about areas like agriculture, commodities. Will we make concessions in key areas? On the other hand, there are those who say, look, when it comes to defense technology, there's much that India can benefit from the Americans. What is it that we should be worried about? Because when Prime Minister Modi went to the United States under Trump 1.0, there was a euphoria around Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar, as I said earlier. Should we be more wary this time?
Well, I think the important thing this time is not worry, but to really change the tone of the discussion to a more positive one. I think what has been underplayed is, and in the media as well, I would say with due respect, is the amount of potential that India has created for U.S. exports. Under the PLI scheme of the Prime Minister, it was announced in the budget, there's enormous incentives for manufacturing companies to actually undertake capex, and there's a huge amount of possibility for U.S. exporters to actually really play to that opportunity. And one of the challenges of the U.S. being based here that we see is that a lot of very high quality but relatively small U.S. companies really don't have that kind of access in terms of information and in terms of opportunities to engage. That would really increase U.S. exports to a next level.
Give me an example. Give me an example of an industry where you feel the United States could actually have a potential relationship with an Indian partner.
Yeah, so I do. So advanced technology for renewable energy, or broadly the energy sector, is one. There are a few companies like that. There are companies in the defense space, there are companies in the high technology, in the fintech space, for example. There are entirely open areas in the financial services industry where actually the U.S. presence there is minuscule compared to what it could be. I could go on and on. But the point is also, on the other side, I think what we have also to emphasize is the opportunity India has offered to big e-commerce players like Amazon, like Walmart, using through Flipkart and so on, where actually it's a fantastic bilateral win. Amazon is probably more successful as an export credit agency for India than anything else we have done at home, simply because they're allowing our SMEs to be able to export globally using their platform. Similarly,
I take your point, but Meera Shankar, Trump has previously described India as a tariff king, abuser of tariffs, and we saw in the past that there was a lot of hard deal in Trump 1.0, a lot of heartburn that we couldn't have a trade deal with the United States. It didn't happen. Could things be different? Is Trump 2.0 someone we'll find even more difficult to deal with in your view?
See, let me put it like this, that from India's point of view, we would like to situate this discussion in the context of the strategic partnership to get a sense of how Trump sees it and how we see the future trajectory going together. I think these issues will come up because Trump's domestic agenda, which is to make America great again, bring back manufacturing to the US, rubs up against other countries, and they have to find a way to deal with this.
He's transactional, ma'am. You just heard Richard Haas saying Trump's primary agenda this time is the economy, to get America's economy back on track.
Right, if I may say, the right mixture would be a combination of the ability to be firm in areas where it hits you and hits your national interest, and on the other hand, to be flexible about seeing where there are potential areas of accommodation or mutually beneficial.
So ma'am, if Trump tomorrow says that on agriculture produce, I expect you to reduce your tariffs, how does India turn around? What does India say?
I think India would not be able to do it across the board. And I think the US understands that our agriculture is of a subsistence type where most of the farmers barely have 2.5-acre farms and are living at a subsistence level. But there are commodities we have bought from the US which we don't produce in India. For instance, we buy almonds, we buy pistachios, and this matters a lot in California to the farmers. So like that, we can consider certain products which are not really produced in India and which don't hit our farmers.
So you're saying very specific tariffs on very specific products is how we can sort of get into some kind of negotiations with the Trump administration at the moment. I just want to for a moment pivot, because remember, Trump, it's not just the Trump-Modi meeting, there's also Elon Musk who's on the menu at the moment. Dan Morrison, what do you make out as a journalist over the last few weeks in America, looking at the way Elon Musk has emerged almost as an alter ego to Donald Trump?
He's behaving, as the hand of the king. The president has declared very clearly that Elon Musk has his full support in his actions to find waste and to reduce radically the footprint and the size of the federal government and the federal workforce. This is the richest man in the world. This is Donald Trump's biggest campaign contributor, and he's acting forcefully and with the support of Donald Trump. We're in for a wild ride here.
So we've got two meetings which are going to take place back to back. Elon Musk is first, and then is Donald Trump. Gil Barndollar, the word used again and again with this Trump administration in the context of Musk and others is transactional. It's all about, let's do business with, we will do business with you if you meet us more than halfway. Do you see Elon Musk almost also playing some kind of a role in these diplomatic outreaches, or is the best way out only to deal with Trump?
No, it certainly appears that way. I mean, we've got a probably unprecedented situation in American history here where people are are not totally sure who's in charge and who's calling the shots. And I think there's probably, I suspect, in foreign capitals an element of kind of Kremlinology, of trying to figure out who actually is close to Trump, who speaks for him, what those unofficial kind of power networks look like. And I think obviously Elon Musk is front and center in any conversation about that.
Yeah, Meera Shankar, this is a real test for diplomats, isn't it? When every day you are getting some disruptive executive order or the other, tracking Trump must be sending our diplomats scurrying around in Washington and other places. You don't know when he's going to hit at you. One day it's Russia, one day it's China. He's got an order a day. Keeps the world uneasy. How do you deal with someone who's a natural disruptor?
Well, there's an element of unpredictability which always makes, navigating the relationship certainly not a smooth or easy task. You have to constantly be on your toes. So I think it'll keep them alert.
Keep them alert. Arun Sharma, I just want, concluding remarks from all of you. To you first. What's the best case scenario you believe out of this Trump-Modi meeting? There's the Trump-Musk visuals we're showing, but out of the Trump-Modi meeting is the one that everyone's looking forward to. What's the best case scenario?
Well, the best case scenario is that the relationship is reset in a positive way, and there is already existing goodwill, but that goodwill has to be maintained through this new cycle of unpredictability, this new cycle of America First, and this new cycle of Make America Great Again. And given the relationship we have an opportunity to position ourselves, and I'm sure Prime Minister Modi is more than capable of that, in a way that we are friends, we are partners, and that these are issues that all countries face, and United States has a sovereign right to determine its own national interest. But we respect that, but we need to find ways to work together, because that, I think everybody understands, including both the leaders, that is in the country's mutual interest.
Dan, you've written in the past about India as well in one of your books. Do you believe that this President, Dan Morrison, has India as one of his priority areas? Among the leaders he's met so far, Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, then hosted Prime Minister Ishita of Japan, and held a working meeting with Jordan's King Abdullah. Does India fit in to the Trump's paradigm? Will his obsession be Russia, Ukraine, Gaza, and China to some extent? Or is India also part of the key areas that Trump will prioritize?
For this administration and for Americans in general, it's Ukraine and Gaza that matter most of all on the foreign front. India is clearly important. The Prime Minister will walk up the White House drive, today, with a salute of soldiers and airmen carrying the flags of all 50 states. It's important, but it's not on the same order as these conflicts.
Let me therefore ask you in conclusion, Meera Shankar, and I know Richard Haas escaped and ducked that question. If you had one piece of advice to give Prime Minister Modi as he meets Elon Musk first and then President Trump, what would you say? Be careful. Not too many hugs this time. No up ki bar, Trump Sarkar.
I think Prime Minister Modi will try to re-establish a connection with President Trump, which will make it easier for the two countries to navigate. I think that will be one of his primary purposes during this visit.
So you're saying build on the personal chemistry. You're saying make this first visit about ensuring that the personal chemistry is intact. Many people believe they're very similar figures. Many of them are seen as these populist strongmen. Each one saying make America great again. Another one says India first, Viksit Bharat. Does that make them clash with each other? Or do similar people attract each other is the question.
Yes, they are similar, but I think their ideologies are also similar to some extent. Prime Minister Modi has Make in India, Trump has his Make America Great Again, and they are both conservative parties. So I think Trump has shown that he's a bit uncomfortable with leaders who have a differing ideology to him. So I think this itself places the discussion on a less
but how do you make America great again and make, the two leaders want to, competing nationalisms can be dangerous at one level as well. You can find areas of cooperation, but at the heart of it, both of them need to address their respective domestic audiences.
Yes, but I think the issue will be, can they work together to ensure that to some extent both countries benefit mutually from the relationship?
Okay, let's leave it there. Let's leave it on a positive note. It's the first meeting since the new Trump government came into power of Prime Minister Modi. One thing about the Prime Minister, he's known to personalize diplomacy. So expect him to give Mr. Trump a bear hug. How Mr. Trump responds to the hug is another question, or whether he uses the T word constantly through their meetings. T for tariff. Thank you all very much for joining me from Washington, New York, and here in the national capital.